Nigeria records nearly 1,500 new COVID-19 cases and 15 new fatalities. The Network for Democracy and Development (NDD) rails against schools reopening, saying they are not yet safe for students and teachers. In international news, 23 Norwegians dead after taking COVID-19 vaccine. And in sport, Lionel Messi may get a 4-match ban as he gets first red card in Barcelona.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Sunday marked another high-number COVID-19 day as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, confirms 1,444 new cases. 15 more COVID-19 related deaths were also recorded. As usual, Lagos had the highest number of cases, 901, followed by Plateau with 136, Kaduna 57, Ebonyi 53, Akwa Ibom 52, and the FCT 54. Total number of cases in the country now stands at 110,387 and fatalities of 1,435. Nearly 90,000 patients have been discharged nationwide. The Network for Democracy and Development (NDD) says schools are not yet safe to reopen because of poor preventive measures put in place to tackle coronavirus pandemic in the country. The group says the announcement by Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 that schools reopen on Monday, January the 18th, is premature because the country is experiencing an increase in coronavirus cases. The group made this declaration during a virtual press conference on Sunday, during which it also railed against plans by education institutions to resume academic activities nationwide without adequate safety measures against the second wave of COVID-19. NDD's national coordinator, Tajuddin Alabede, said federal and state governments have left students, pupils, and staff to their fates as adequate safety measures were not put in place by the government to contain the spread of the disease. Alabede said, quote, "The consequences of poorly regulated resumption plans amidst the rising cases of COVID-19 may be catastrophic," end quote. He further said the government should consider providing facilities for virtual classes, deploying health and security personnel to schools to handle emergency, providing hand sanitizer and masks to students and staff, providing testing facilities for compulsory testing of all students and staff, and setting up isolation centers in all local governments. That fear expressed by the Network for Democracy and Development has characterized the reopening of schools on Monday in Lagos State, as many parents and wards have decided to keep their children back. Schools reopened on Monday in line with federal government's directive, even as the COVID-19 second wave continues to bear down on the nation and cases rise. Public Affairs Director of the Lagos State Ministry of Education, Kayode Abayomi, said Lagos is taking steps to ensure schools are safe for students and teachers. He said Commissioner of Education, Folashade Adefisayo, was visiting schools in different parts of the state to monitor their compliance with COVID-19 protocol guidelines. Parents and teachers are fearful and apprehensive of the deadlier new strain of coronavirus and whether schools are well equipped to put mandatory protocols in place. If all goes well, the second term of the 2020-2021 academic session will run for 61 days for both public and private schools. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has called on Senate President Ahmed Lawan and House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila to ensure President Buhari sells no public properties to fund the 2021 budget. SERAP said the government should rather cut salaries and allowances of top officials to address the growing deficit and borrowing rather than sell national assets. In a letter to the National Assembly on Saturday, The organization said the lawmakers have a constitutional and oversight responsibility to protect valuable public properties and to ensure responsible budget spending. It says disposing of valuable public properties to fund the budget was not in public interest and would be counterproductive, as the action would be vulnerable to corruption and mismanagement. The rights group says such a move would undermine the social contract with Nigerians and that it will leave the country that the government was off and hurt the country in the long run. SERAP recommended a freeze on spending in certain areas of the budget, such as hardship and furniture allowances, entertainment allowances, international travels, vehicles purchase, and utilities for lawmakers, members, and the presidency. Nigerian Army Chief Tukur Buratai has applauded his troops for repelling Boko Haram swap attack on Friday after the terrorists invaded an army base in Mate, Borno State. The efforts were reinforced by Air Task Force units of Operation Lafia Dole. Buratai said the upper hand gained by the troops was a, quote, good display of gallantry, end quote. He also said the troops' heroic and patriotic actions resulted in the successes recorded. Buratai's reactions were captured in a statement by Army spokesman Brigadier General Sigil Musa. Former speakers of the Houses of Assembly in Ekiti and Ondo states have denied endorsing Asiwaju Bola Tinubu for the 2023 presidency. At a meeting of 7 and former speakers in Yoruba states in Ibadan, the former speakers, led by the Lagos State House of Assembly Speaker Mudashiru Obasa and the coordinator of former Southwest speakers Titi Oseni, the former speakers denied endorsing the presidential ambition of the All Progressives Congress APC national leader. 5 former Ondo speakers, Victor Olabinton, Oluwasegun Bolariwa, Ayo Agbomusherin, Abdulazam Olawale Taufik, Kenneth Olawale, and Patrick Ajigbolamu issued a statement on Sunday noting that Obasa was at the meeting to solicit the support of the former speakers as automatic national delegates, quote, for the aspiration of his mentor, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, end quote. The group noted that all candidates from the zone, including Tinubu, had a legitimate right to aspire to lead the country. Former Speaker from Ekiti State also said his governor, Dr. Kaide Fayemi, is equally interested in the presidency. He said the group believes every eligible aspirant deserves equal rights and opportunities. Coming up, African news, Egypt ramps up oxygen production as demand rises. And later, international news, 23 Norwegians dead after taking COVID-19 vaccine.
You are watching ANN.
The city slept. We installed a board in the middle of a park with something special hidden inside. We wondered if people would notice. They didn't, so we invited Nigerians to add their polls to the scene, whichever way they chose to. Some literally added their own polls. Some sang, others rapped, and even recited poetry. As they added their polls, the board came alive. Hidden figures broke free from obscurity, inspired by the crowd expressing themselves.
You know you can't do anything.
Because why blend in when you can stand out? NTN polls. Do you? Dial star 406 hash to join.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Oxygen supply is one of the most critical services in Egypt's fight against the COVID-19. Demand for it has surged, forcing medical oxygen suppliers in the country to ramp up production. Correspondent Adil El Marouki reports.
In Egypt, oxygen is now prescribed as an essential in the treatment of all COVID-19 patients. That has spiked demand for the gas, creating a huge gap in the market.
Oxygen consumption in some hospitals increased from 7 to 10-fold.
That has created a black market for oxygen cylinders and gas regulators, which has seen some prices triple. Ministries of Health, Interior, Trade and Industry have created a joint committee to manage the supply gap and launch a crackdown on the black market.
Normally 60% of our production goes to healthcare and the other 40% goes to the industrial sector. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've frozen our industrial deliveries and all our production goes to the medical sector.
The government has instructed all companies producing gases to maximize production capacity. Our truck drivers barely sleep now. Distribution fleets have never been so busy. We had oxygen reserves in our storage tanks. We are now withdrawing from them. There was a gap of 300,000 litres, and that has been quickly recovered with the steel companies joining us.
All major steel manufacturers have been instructed to decrease production so as to lower their consumption of industrial oxygen. Their facilities are now being used to increase the purity of the oxygen for medical purposes. Meanwhile, producers of medical-grade gases are expanding their production lines.
We've built this facility in less than a month since we became aware of the crisis. It is almost completed. We have missing electric panels from the National Electricity Company. They promised us to reduce their usual installation time to a third, but we need them to be even faster. The pandemic is harsh and we must feel the shortage in the market.
The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of medical gases facilities in the healthcare system. And because of the sudden surge on oxygen, companies like this one have started to manufacture new facilities that will multiply the production of oxygen gas cylinders, which will be mainly used by individuals.
The coronavirus pandemic has caused countries to adjust to normal ways of doing things. The Zimbabwean government has stoked some controversy in its decision to place restrictions on traditional barriers in the country. Respondent Faraya Nwakutuya has the story.
It's referred to as the one journey on which there are no companions. That reference has become more literal under new guidelines for burials of people that have died from COVID-19. At this funeral, relatives of the deceased are kept several meters away. They didn't get to view the body, which came sealed in its coffin directly from the mortuary to the gravesite. They did not perform some of the traditional burial rites. It's unfamiliar and unbefitting, according to some ordinary citizens.
In our culture, when someone dies, they should be brought into their home one final time and have their gathered relatives and friends bid them farewell appropriately. This is alien to us.
We cannot cut our culture because of the disease and do what other people do in other countries. That is their culture. We should stick to ours.
Some feel the drastic measures, in particular those relating to the handling of corpses, are not justified.
When you go and look at the CDC guidelines, the Center for Disease Control America, it has been shown that the actual deceased body poses very little threat in as far as spreading. As long as you mask up, as long as you sanitize and you ensure that the body remains in the coffin, there is very limited.
Preventing people from bidding farewell in the way they deem fit could have psychological and cultural implications.
People may not have closure to death in that way. Some people, they've even thought that maybe this person's spirit may come back or may not find rest, because you didn't afford the body the chance to get inside the home. You know, Shona people, they've got very rich cultural beliefs. They always attach some meaning between the life of those who are alive and those who are dead.
Government has since said intercity transportation of bodies is allowed provided they comply with prescribed regulations. An earlier position to ban such travel would have put graveyards in Harare under pressure. Space is already limited here and at risk of running out should the death rate spiral out of control.
Rwanda's Biomedical Center officials says the country has the cold storage capabilities for all types of COVID-19 vaccines that have so far been approved for use. They say 5 of the cold storage machines in the country are capable of cooling temperatures down to between -40 and -80 degrees Celsius. They say those facilities are also located at various other sites with varying capabilities. They say the quality of vaccines that will be used is also being closely monitored. Rwandans say they are eagerly awaiting acquisition of vaccines by the country and for vaccinations to start as soon as possible. When we return, international news. 23 Norwegians dead after taking COVID-19 vaccine. And later, sport. Lionel Messi may get a 4-match ban.
You are watching ANN. Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The United States is preparing for an unprecedented presidential inauguration on Wednesday, prompted by the Capitol insurrection 12 days ago. More than 25,000 National Guard troops have been brought into Washington, D.C. to provide security for the event. U.S. defense officials have also expressed fear of an insider attack or other threats from security troops assigned to provide protection during the inauguration. Small protests also took place at heavily fortified state houses around the country. There were widespread fears of violence against state capitals across the country, like the siege on the U.S. Capitol. There has been no report of violence. But on the weekend, a man was arrested in Washington with unauthorized inauguration credentials, an unregistered handgun, and 500 rounds of ammunition. Some had described the scenes of National Guard troops taking over the streets around the U.S. Capitol as looking like the war zones of Afghanistan or the Middle East. Amid this background, Joe Biden will deliver his inaugural address of national unity that he is sworn in on Wednesday. He plans to immediately jump into action to combat the coronavirus pandemic that has claimed more than 400,000 American lives. He also promised to issue many executive orders to undo some of Donald Trump's most controversial policies. He says his first order of business would be an executive order for the U.S. to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. He will also revoke Trump's immigration ban on some majority Muslim countries. And the New York Post has quoted Norwegian health officials as saying 23 persons have died within days of receiving the first dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. 13 of the deaths are said to be related to side effects of the shots. All 13 were nursing home patients who were at least 80 years old. The newspaper quoted the chief physician at the Norwegian Medicines Agency, Sigurd Hotemo, as saying in a statement on Friday, common reactions to the vaccine, including fever and nausea, may have contributed to a fatal outcome in some frail patients. This has forced officials to adjust their guidance on who should receive the vaccine, but they are not expressing serious concern. The country has inoculated more than 13,000 citizens with the first shot of the Pfizer or Moderna coronavirus vaccine since last month. Norwegian Medicines Agency Medical Director Steinar Madsen says the agency is not alarmed. He says the vaccines have very little risk. Millions of Palestinians are desperately awaiting COVID-19 vaccines. The World Health Organization sub-office in Gaza is working with the Palestinian Authority to get some vaccines.
On Monday, Palestinian Minister of Health May Al-Kila announced the authorization of Russia's vaccine known as Sputnik V as part of the emergency plan to fight the coronavirus in Palestinian territories. Al-Kila added that the process of administering vaccines will start with vaccinating health staff, then elderly, until about 70% of Palestinian citizens are vaccinated. The first doses are expected to arrive in February, a month ahead of when officials here expect to receive a first batch of vaccines from British drug maker AstraZeneca. Palestine is the first country in the Middle East to register the Sputnik vaccine.
We are working closely together with both Ramallah Ministry of Health, as well as also here in Gaza, together with other partners like UNICEF and UNRWA, to already start with the preparations for the vaccination. And the COVAX facility will provide only 20% of the Palestinian population with vaccines. So the Palestinian authorities at the moment are looking for the vaccines for the remaining 80%.
With the introduction of COVID-19 vaccines, Israel has earned praise for its aggressive vaccination program, inoculating 20% of its population to date, more than any other country. But Israel has come under criticism too for refusing to vaccinate Palestinians, even frontline medical workers, while Palestinian officials and human rights groups say Israel has an obligation as an occupying power to provide the needed vaccines. Israeli officials dismiss such arguments, and Palestinian citizens are left to worry.
We have a feeling of anxiety and there are complaints in the streets of Palestine, especially in Gaza, due to the delay in vaccination. We really feel the world's neglect of our region. Unfortunately, vaccines have reached most countries except Palestine. There are patients who need this vaccine urgently, and the lack of medical supplies threatens their lives.
Recently, the epidemic has intensified in Palestine, exhausting and stretching the capabilities of the Palestinian health sector. The Palestinian Ministry of Health has reported more than 148,000 cases, including more than 1,600 deaths in both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Palestinians hope approval of the Russian vaccine will speed the arrival of an ultimate victory over COVID-19 here.
Up next, sport. Barcelona star Lionel Messi may get a 4-match ban. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the fact behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, 23-year-old Ruth Usoro has set a new record in the women's triple jump event at the Texas Tech Corky Classic on Saturday, leaping a distance of 14.28 meters in her first attempt to set a new Nigerian record. She broke Chinoye Oduha's 14.21 meters record set at the 2007 African Games in Algeria. The distance was also the joint world leap in the triple jump this year and the second farthest distance in NAAA history, behind Georgia's Ketura Orji, who leaped 14.53 meters in 2018. Barcelona star Lionel Messi could face a 4-match ban after being sent off for taking a swipe at Athletic Bilbao's player in Sunday's Spanish Supercopa final. Barca lost 3-2 despite twice leading the lead through Anthony Griezmann. Messi will now be suspended for 2 games, but the ban could be doubled when the Royal Spanish Football Federation's committee meets this week to discuss the infraction. The forward will miss Thursday's Copa del Rey trip to face Tortilla Conella and Sunday's La Liga game away. That is the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant evening.